I say composting, the first thing they're going to do is lower the pH of this food. Pickled foods are typically acidic. So this food in here is probably somewhere around a neutral pH of 7, maybe down to 6.5. When we're done, the pH is going to be probably down in the 4s or the 5s. That's not a problem. I know some of you are asking, well, I don't want my soil to have a low pH. When we collect this stuff like we do, we're going to let it ferment for a while, probably about 2 weeks. And in a 2-week period, the microorganisms are going to grow, they're going to multiply. So if we put in 10,000 microorganisms, just as an example, we're going to have a couple 100,000, maybe a 500,000, because they're going to grow. Everything is a function of food. So we have a microorganism, we have a living environment, it's an anaerobic or without air environment, so we don't have to worry about other pathogens coming in. We're lowering the pH, just like you pickle and preserve food, we're going to pickle and preserve this by lowering the pH by the microorganisms. And since it's a function of food, we have a lot of food, we're going to have a lot of microorganisms. So another no-no you'll see is meats. No big deal. You don't have to break hot dogs up. I just choose to do so because it gives them more surface area to grow and live on. Just drop them in here. It's really this simple, guys. How many of you have gone composting with, what we're doing here? They say everything but the kitchen sink. Well, guess what? Let's put the kitchen cake in there. Compost everything, guys. You will be absolutely stunned and amazed at how much you throw away. Every year, if you fill this 4-gallon bucket and it takes you, for instance, say 2 weeks, and then you have 2 weeks of fermentation, and then after your fermentation, I've made another video that shows you how you bury it in the ground, and it'll finish the composting to where you'll have a good compost and humus, rich in biology, a good tilth, a lot of microorganisms, a lot of worms, a lot of biology, a lot of stuff in there to grow things with. You'll be surprised that in a year's time, just by taking your gardening scraps and your kitchen scraps, that you can probably put anywhere between 800 and 1,000 pounds of biology and soil back into your garden, something that you would otherwise throw away in a landfill. So here's our red beets. We'll put them in there, and you see a little bit of moisture. Since that layer was a little thick, reach in, grab you some of this. See, just sprinkle it evenly on there, guys. Keep at it. The nice thing about this kind of composting is you can't overload it. Your standard compost pile, if you put too much in there, you'll have a bad compost pile. After a while, it'll go bad, it'll smell, it'll putrefy, you'll get areas in it that are just nasty, and you don't really want to put that in your garden and your food. With this stuff here, again, we're preserving everything, so what we're going to do is I can take this same system in a 4-gallon bucket and make it in a 20-gallon bucket. I can take this same system, and if I had a restaurant or I had a office where I had a lot of people bringing their lunches and whatnot, I could go ahead and compost using a 55-gallon garbage can using the exact same method. A layer of Bokashi, layer of food, layer of Bokashi, layer of food, until it's all full up. And then eventually you're going to take it out and bury it in the soil and give it a couple weeks, and then you're done, guys. Here, some pickled peppers, the Peter Piper style. Go ahead, lay them out. How many of you have seen composting like this? I bet a lot of hands have not gone up in the classroom. All right, there you go. That is it, guys. All that food that I just had here is now in my bucket. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my dollar store special masher. And we said in the beginning of this that this is an anaerobic process. So if we push down on the food, we're accomplishing two things. Number one, we're pushing out air pockets. Number two, we are taking the wheat bran and pushing it into the surface. We're making a better contact, and we're making more room in our bucket. That's it, guys. What we do is we'll put an inner lid on here. Anything that's occlusive, anything meaning that it'll take out oxygen. In my buckets here, if you were to order one from me, I have a cardboard and wax paper inner liner. You can make one yourself. You can use a plate you can use a dish that you would use in the bottom of a planted pot, a plastic one, or you can just get yourself a piece of wax paper, guys. That's it. Anything that can go on the surface, exclude the air, and keep it as airtight as you can get. So, now that I'm done, I'm just going to take this, push it in, and that's it, guys. That is it for the composting. I will put a snap lid. The lid should be airtight. It doesn't have to have the rubber liner around the edge. It's nice if it does. Doesn't have to. Put your lid on, snap it. That's it, guys. That is all there is to starting your Bokashi bucket. Make sure you snap the lid well. As easy as Bokashi composting is, it can fail. Some of the things it can fail for is that you didn't put a good quality Bokashi wheat bran or rice bran in there. Most of the Bokashi brands you buy are pretty good stuff. I know my stuff, I ferment it for at least 60 days, so I have a good fermentation, and I dry it out really well. Some of the other Bokashis that I've gotten, I've actually bought some before, it's wet. So I did get less volume per weight, because they're sold typically by weight. I sell mine as 650 grams. A lot of people sell it 500 grams, 600 grams, whatever. But when you, for instance, with mine, it's very dry. So for that 650 grams, you get a larger mass, which means you really get more product than some of the others. So when you buy a Bokashi brand, whether it's wheat or rice, take a look at it, make sure it's good and dry, smell it. It should have a good cidery smell or a good vinegary smell. If it doesn't, be careful. The stuff that I use is 100% wheat bran. A lot of Bokashis will have sawdust in it. If it says may contain, it's an inferior product because you're paying for a scrap material. Another thing that can cause this to go bad is that you didn't put the inner lid on, or you didn't get the air out. Again, this is anaerobic without oxygen, so try to keep as much oxygen off of it as you can. The main reason that this fails, if it does fail, in the very rare case that it does, is you don't drain it. Every 2 to 3 days you want to drain the liquid out. Tip your bucket towards you, press the button in my case, and drain it out. If you don't have a spout like I've got here, go ahead and just tilt your bucket sideways and save that juice. That juice is liquid gold. I can show you in another video, or you can go onto my website and see what you can do with that juice. And that's it, guys. Just take your bucket, set it in the house. I set sometimes when it's warm outside, like it is now, I set it in the garage, because with the heat, you get a faster fermentation. Instead of waiting 2 weeks, you can wait maybe 10 days, because the heat increases the activity of the biologicals in the wheat bran. In the wintertime, I stick it in the house under the sink. I've always got it close to the kitchen, so I don't have to walk out in the middle of winter to my backyard and go get a shovel, go get a fork, and turn in some food. I don't have to go to the tumbly bin, spin it around a few times, open it up, scrape it in there. Nah, this is very user-friendly, very easy. So, in just a minute, I'll show you a bucket that I've already filled up. I used some apples out of my apple tree in the backyard, and I wish you could smell it. It smells like the best apple cider you've ever seen. So I'm going to take a break for just a minute, go get the other bucket, and show you what it looks like. Be back in just a second. Alright guys, we're back. The bucket on the left is the one that we just filled up in the beginning of the video. This bucket here, exactly the same. 4-gallon plastic, snap lid, spout on the bottom. This is what it looks like after a couple days or a couple weeks. You notice I've got my inner liner here to keep some of the air off. You can see these are a bunch of apples that I took off of my apple tree in the backyard. And you can see the Bokashi brand. And if you'll notice, there's a little bit of white stuff. A little bit of white stuff. You see all these spots, all these specks. You may think to yourself, oh my God, what the heck just happened? You can actually see it on the paper as well, right here. Don't worry. The white stuff you see, the white fuzzy stuff, is good stuff. That is one of the beneficial fungi, one of the beneficial yeasts that is working on this food. Now, if you look at it, you can still see these are apples. And as I explained to you earlier, in Bokashi composting, during the collection phase, where you add your layer, your food, and then your layer again, and you let it set and you let it ferment, it's being fermented, it's being pickled, it's being preserved. And because it's being preserved, it's not going to really physically look much different than when you put it in. In fact, it may look exactly the same, and you may say, hey Brian, I mean, I'm used to seeing black stuff, I'm used to seeing soil, bits and pieces. This is one half of the composting process, the collection phase. The other half that's going to bring you that wonderful black soil with that smell, with all those worms, springtails, all the biology that when you look at it you say, man, that's great soil. That's to come. Right now, even though this food and the apples are a little brown, which is normal, but even though this food looks the same, it's not. The bacteria, the lactobacillus, the actinomycetes, all the fungi, all the yeast, they're breaking this down, they're eating it. Physically it looks the same, structurally it is decomposed. So don't be fooled when you open up your bucket and it looks the same. Don't think, wow, I just wasted my money on this, it doesn't look any different. That's absolutely normal. And I wish, man, I wish you could smell that. That is awesome smelling. It's just a wonderful cider smell. I took a bunch of the apples out of the backyard. These are what I call horse apples, really not useful for eating or cooking. So what am I going to do? Glad you asked. I'm going to make some soil with it. And in another video, I'll show you where I bury it. And we'll make some soil for some gardening, for some potting soil and whatnot. And we'll go from there. So let me put this back together again. Put the lid on. And we're done. See you next time. This is Brian with Prokashi.com with Bokashi Composting. If you have any questions, come see us on the website or give me a call. Thanks.